your
Which on my computer?
non-work computer. So we're recording, we're live. We guess we should better be careful what we say right now. So hi everybody, we are back. Tom Benton was in Iowa
I was.
for
My
graduation.
son's graduation. It was amazing.
He just left.
I know. Please, Gabe, Julie, Andrea, can you slow time down? Can you slow it down? It's going too fast.
It's nuts. And when I think about, like, my kids have already had their 10-year high school reunions, like 2 years ago, 4 years ago. It's just like, wait a minute, how did that happen?
Right.
You know, it's like they're going to have their 10-year college reunion soon, which is
We just
like,
dropped him off at Iowa. I was
Did
What
he-
it feels like.
I was
did
so
he come
sad.
home or did he stay out there?
He stayed, well, actually he's going to Berlin for
Oh,
the
that's
summer.
right. That's right.
So then we don't know. Then more adventures to come. But
That's what's
Well-
kind of fun about that age.
You know, what's really crazy is like since I mean it's always that way, especially when you know somebody sends you an announcement and their kid is getting married or going to school and you're like, I thought they were 3 years old.
yeah.
Because that's the last time I saw little Jimmy John or Mary Lou. And but since the lockdown period, time is like an accordion, right?
It's so weird.
It is very strange. And I don't know if it's ever going to get back to the Ethan days. I don't
Because
know.
we're in 2023 right now, and it feels like you're so right, Andrea, because it's like I can't, because doing the events and stuff, I have to think about, okay, what it was like pre-pandemic. It's like, no, we've been doing events now for like 2 years. We've been solidly back into events.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it doesn't seem like that long,
Right.
but we
Well,
have
and
been.
And we did a lot of talking about the COVID because he spent his college years, most of them, except for the very first semester, COVID.
Yeah.
Through COVID. So it was fascinating and crazy.
Yeah.
It
Well,
is.
we've got, I think, a lot of good books that I hope you guys are, well, not that I hope, I know you're going to talk about some good books, but I hope there may be ones that I'm thinking in my head that you'll be talking about. And if not, I'll just throw in what I'm thinking about too. So it's going to go Gabe, Tom, Andrea. So Gabe, take it away.
I will take it away. Make sure my screen is up. Come back to Zoom. Blow you up. Share my screen. Where did you go? So the first book I'm talking about is What It Takes to Save a Life by Dr. Kwani Stewart. Some of us met Kwani a couple of weeks ago. He was at an event that we had for Southern California booksellers. Really sharp guy. So his story is he is a veterinarian. He's been around all over the country working. And he had this particular job where he says they were euthanizing dozens, scores of dogs and cats and household pets a day at this place he was working at. He was suffering from burnout. I had no idea, but apparently veterinarians have a higher suicide rate than dentists in Sweden. So it's a high stress job. It's a high pressure job. He was on top of him being a veterinarian, he was involved in a situation and a project that was not particularly healthy. He didn't see any kind of, you're destroying animals, you're destroying living creatures. So his story goes, he one day he was walking to the 7-Eleven where he goes every day to get his cup of coffee. And there was a homeless guy, and this unhoused gentleman had a dog with him, and he could see that the dog was in distress, and he was, it was a flea caused problem that the dog had. And he stopped and talked to the guy, and he tells him, look, if you're here tomorrow about this time, I'll bring you some medicine. It'll make your dog feel better. So what he says was, it was like a $2 investment in some pills on his end. And the guy was there the next day. He took the medicine. He said a couple weeks later, he's walking in the neighborhood again, getting his coffee, and the guy's there with his dog. And The dog is happy. The guy is happy. He's no longer bumming and depressed. And it clicked a switch in his brain about the power of doing good, the power of caring, and the power of taking care of living creatures. So it's a book about the importance of the animals in our lives, the pets in our lives. But it's also a book about human connection. It's about taking care of all of us, particularly the most vulnerable of us. Right now, we seem to have a whole side of the country is like fighting human decency, and taking care of people is now a sin and anti-American. And we got to persecute. We're outlawing homelessness. You know, we create homelessness, we create poverty. Now we want to outlaw it. So there's a whole segment of the country that is really for punishing people that are victims of the circumstances that we have created. And that's where his focus is. It's looking, we're all in this together. We are all in the same fight. We all need to make the world a better place, the people next to us better, and vice versa. So it does start off, it is all about the power of the bond and the bonds of these pets and these living creatures, but it's about all living creatures. It's a pretty holistic book, and the writing is quite good. The writing was what really took me by surprise on this book. I kind of knew what to expect, I guess, a little bit from the introduction and stuff, but the writing is really strong. So I hardly recommend it. He's also a local, San Diego local. So he's in town.
We have somebody that's watching with us, that Diane, who said her husband is a retired vet, and she said the suicide rate is high in the US too for vets. It's a very expensive investment for education, and they have high debt. So yeah, it's crazy. And Diane, you also had a question about who our FSG rep is, and that would be Brittany. And we've been trying to get Brittany, if you're watching us and not here, we've been trying to get our Macmillan rep to come on and do tea time with us. So we'll hopefully get her to join us one of these days. So
It's perfectly safe here at tea
it's
time.
perfectly safe in tea time. I know we miss Macmillan, and now we're missing Hachette. We got to get Hachette back on here too. Miss Amanda. So anyways, it's always, and Shannon pops in every once in a while, so it's all good. So Gabe, good book on that. I think not that I want to promote other stores, I think Diesel's having an event with him. So if you're here in San Diego, is it tomorrow? Yeah. So if you're here in San Diego, I think there's an event in up at Diesel with him.
And it goes on sale tomorrow.
Okay, there you go. All righty, Tom.
All right. Also on sale tomorrow is The Three of Us. I'm not going to try to say the name. She's a Nigerian British writer. I know I will butcher the name, but it's a very approachable novel called The Three of Us. The tagline on the front kind of gives you a feel for, well, also the spilled wine will tell you kind of what you're up to. What if your two favorite people hated each other with a passion? So you've got basically three characters. There's a British Nigerian couple and the wife's best friend. We get three versions of their story in a way. It's over the course of a day and a night. It's funny, it's dark. It's like it reminded me of kind of like a Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, a play like Taught. Every word out of the mouth of one of the characters is going to change the situation, and the situation keeps evolving, and you don't know who to trust. You don't know which character to trust until the tension rises and rises until the climax. And it's one of those books. It's got to be, I don't know the page count, but it's got to be less than 200 pages. So it's one of those books you sit down with and you don't stop until you finish the book. It's one of those. So it comes from Sally Kim at Putnam, who's the editor of Such a Fun Age, Kylie Reed. A lot of the great books from Putnam come from Sally, and this was a big international auction, big buzz book around the world. So it's out tomorrow in hardcover, and I expect the reviews are just beginning. So already getting rave reviews from Publishers Weekly and Kirkus. So that's The Three of Us. I don't really want to say too much more because it's awesome to read.
Yeah, it is. You have to experience it.
Yeah. So I can't wait for people to start talking about it, reading it, talking to their friends, deciding which character's version they believe, how the book ends exactly.
Can you believe any of them?
Yes, right.
Do you believe any of them?
It's super clever, and I think the author she works in publishing, so I think she's very good. She knows what she's doing.
Yeah, We just had, it was sort of the same thing. We just had the event last week with Erica Bauermeister for No Two Persons about the book. And it's one of those things where it's like, you can't really say too much because you want to let somebody just experience the book,
Right.
you know,
Well,
and,
in
and
this
find
case,
that.
right. In this case, the tagline says it all, because you got this married couple who have their issues for sure, but then they're also undermined by the wife's best friend. She's definitely out for blood.
Right.
And then they're drinking too much over the course of this day and night.
What did that cause us problems?
You would have thought
Sometimes.
drinking too much would cause problems. man.
That exacerbates things? I don't know. Come on, Tom.
In this case, just these three characters.
What happened to the
Fictional
good old days when we used
That's
to be
fake
able,
news. It's fake
maybe,
news.
yeah, maybe when we were younger and we drank a bunch and we weren't dealing with things so
Yeah, right.
so taught. So, all right, Andrea, what do you have for us?
Also out tomorrow, May 16th, is The Postcard.
Finally.
Yes. And
Oh my God.
yeah, look at that cover. This is
Love that cover.
signed by the author, personalized in French. Very cool. This is a keeper. I'm keeping this forever. So this is by Amber Russ and translated from the French by Tina Cover, who's critically acclaimed for her translation skills. And this is an unforgettable book that what has been a bestseller in France and other countries in Europe. Basically, and it's based on a true story about what happened to Anne Barrest's family when a postcard arrives with no provenance, so no one knows who sent it, and it just has the names of 3 of Barrest's family members who perished in the Holocaust. And so she goes on a sleuthing journey and writes this really powerful novel about based on her family story. Now, I just want to read you what our own Julie Slavinsky said about this book. Yes.
What?
Because Julie did nominate this for the Indie Next list. So thank you, Julie, along with a host of many other powerful voices in the indie bookstore world. This is historical fiction at its finest. The Postcard is based on the author's family and the brutal realities of the Holocaust. But at its core, this is a story of love, ultimate loss, and the power of family. WW2 historical fiction readers, don't miss this one, and that is for sure. Just out this weekend is an incredible profile of Anne Barrest and the book in New Yorker. Check that out. It's online now. And the swath of publicity that's coming for this book is just so tremendous. I am very excited to see what happens with this book, and run down to Warwick's right now and get it. And I know you want to talk about it, so I'm not going to talk very much more. I think you should just go on about it.
I'm going to go on a little bit about it because it is that World War II fiction book that it's sort of, I equate it to the Hans Fallada Every Man Dies Alone, who wrote from the German perspective of what was going on in World War II. And it's a very hard, brutal look at World War II from the German. And that's what this book is that it's the story of this family, but she doesn't pull any punches with how traumatic and what this was like to go through. And I was talking to a bookseller about it at the store the other day, because she's reading it now too. And they're all loving it at the store. And she said, the characters are so, one point where they're in France and they just keep going back. And I said, yeah, well, there was hope. You didn't realize how bad it was. And you just kept going back to, they wanted it to be better, and they wanted their lives to be the same, and nothing was. And I said, it's kind of like what we're going through right now is we all think that everything's just going to be fine. And so it is I think it's an amazing book, and it really is, deserves all the accolades that it's going to get. And I too have a signed copy with a little personal note inside. It's
Yes.
in French though, so I need to find somebody that can interpret this lovely note
Yeah.
for me.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that we failed to mention that it's told through the protagonist is the one of the survivors of the sisters of the main family that is
Right.
they start out in Russia, emigrate, and then left because of the pogroms there, emigrated to France because the father really was a serious Francophile and wanted to be a French citizen. And at one point they all moved to Palestine,
Right.
at the behest of the father's father. And they hate it there. He hates it there. And so he moves back and puts his family in the middle of the eye of the storm, or not the eye of the storm, but like the vortex, and bad things happen.
Back in France,
Um,
yeah.
And but this novel is just so like the exploration of identity, and the need to belong in a society is also just
Right.
really beautifully written. And I don't know, I just think this book is going to sell for a long time. It's going to be passed around.
I think it's a perennial World War II, definitely. It is
Yeah.
definitely for those that that are serious about reading World War II fiction.
Yep.
It really is it's a very powerful book. I thought it was very well done. So
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your
Yep.
endorsements.
yep, absolutely. I would just have to find somebody that can interpret the French signature for me.
You-
It's not
and
just
you
a
need-
signature, there's a note.
Right, and you need someone who can do it with a little bit of poetry, not Google Translate. You don't want.
Correct. I don't need Google's voice in there with me. Right.
Oh,
Okay,
here's-
Gabe. It's your second
So
book.
Life of One's Own by Joanna Biggs. 9 Women Writers Begin Again. So she's looking at a good number of women who have key literary figures who have taken off, left their life behind, and started from scratch. So she's talking about Mary Wollstonecraft, Zora Neale Hurston, Simone de Beauvoir, Elena Ferrante, Toni Morrison, Sylvia Plath, Virginia Woolf. The writers. She decided to leave her marriage for no other reason than she just wanted to experience an unencumbered life and devote herself to her passions and not have anything else to mess with it. So she wanted to find intellectual freedom, as many of these women did, who went off on their own against the grain, left marriages, left families behind, etc. So she sort of, had to fight off the societal pressures of just saying, you know what, I'm going to look out for myself. I don't need somebody else. I want to find everything I need. So she's newly untethered. She's a free spirit. Moves from Britain to New York. She's an editor in New York currently, and starts examining her own life and what she wants to do and what she wants to be. And that is what this book is all about. And interspersed with her own narrative of her intellectual growth, her evolution, or whatever you want to call it, how her life has moved on. Interspersed with all of that are these women's lives and the parallels, and trying to explain what was going on in these women's minds and what's going on in her mind. And as she's trying to find what she's fighting for. So, not something that really happens. Women are kind of criticized if they kind of go off and follow your bliss. You have guys do it all the time. They stay married, they go off mountain climbing for 5 months. They're on Everest or some peak for 4 or 5 months a year and come back whenever. And so it's an interesting flip of the coin here. But I found the read really interesting. I found the narrative really strong. So I think this is going to get some really good attention in the States. Garnered really good review attention in the UK. And it's always interesting reading about interesting people and interesting lifestyles. And
I
She-
love that she
she-
took on those 9 women. I think it sounds fascinating because it's like they're all very strong, right? But they all are very different too.
right.
Yeah, and when you
Yeah.
must see what's similar about them. What
Correct. Yeah. Looks fascinating. Yeah. Looks really good. All right, Tom.
All right, so my next book, I think this was out last Tuesday. Oh My Mother. Now, the author is Connie Wang, and it's a mother-daughter, perfect for Mother's Day, which was yesterday, of course. Happy Mother's Day, Julie.
Thank you.
Mother-daughter. So Connie the daughter she's a journalist and a travel writer. So she calls her family almost like accidental immigrants. They came to the Midwest when she was very, very young, and they didn't intend to stay, but because of political turmoil, they ended up staying. So they're kind of, it's a family that's displaced from, they're not where they thought they would be, but then there's a whole life ahead of them. And so there was conflict between Connie and her mother as she was growing up, but they came together, and that's the story of the book, through travel. And so it's 9 essays that takes them. So it's travel writing that takes them all over the world together. But really, it's a portrait of their relationship, how it changed, how she learned to understand her mother, in a way she never could or had when she was younger. They're funny. Her mother is, an absolute character, totally an original, and Connie learns to admire that about her mother. And the travel writing is great. And she wrote this piece, which I highly recommend. Yes, it was in yesterday's New York Times. It's called Generation Connie. Did anybody see this?
Oh, yes. Okay.
This is a generation of young Asian women who are named Connie because of Connie Chung. The influence of Connie Chung, which of course I never thought about it, but it is a great piece. The headline is, "I got my name from Connie Chung, so did they." And then there's all these women. These are just some of the women that she found and interviewed who are named Connie. And and if you look at it online on the New York Times website, there are videos with some of these women and Connie Chung. And when she told Connie Chung, Connie didn't know this had happened.
Right.
Like, she didn't understand her own influence. She's had a great career, very successful, but she was so focused on the career and didn't really have time to think about this kind of influence that she had over a whole generation of women. So it's fascinating, and you'll get a taste of the writer that Connie is in the book, Oh My Mother, from the Times piece. So highly recommend both.
Yeah, no, both of them sound great. The book sounds really good, but the whole thing with the Connie Chung is fascinating. And I think because she didn't know, is these generation of women were born and it was happening well before social media.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So it wasn't like there was this social media thing like Connie Chung, because
right. Because when you look, and I hadn't thought about this either, but she talks about it in the article, Connie is not a popular name. Like, it is not, even at the time, it was not a popular name, but it became for a certain group of women. And sometimes they chose their own names, and they chose Connie or their parents because they wanted an
American name,
girl to grow
name.
And their girl to grow up to be powerful and successful, and as Connie Chung.
Right.
So it's really it's a really surprising piece. I thought, really well done.
Yeah, no, fascinating. I saw that too, Tom, and I was like, oh, this is so fascinating. I loved it. Yeah,
perfect.
It was really
good.
And
then we do have a quote from Connie Chung for the book. "Mother and daughter relationships are always tricky, but this peripatetic pair has outdone all of us with this most excellent adventure written by my namesake, author Connie Wang." So
that's pretty
I think this is a really kind of a special book.
Awesome. Love
That's
it.
so cool.
All right, Andrea, what second book do you have for us?
I have this book, if I can pull it up, Notes on Complexity, a scientific theory of connection, consciousness, and being. This is from the powerhouse Spiegel and Grau. And basically, this book is the first of its kind, the first trade book on complexity theory. So it's fairly, it's complex. And and there's a lot of academic tomes that would be pretty hard for the lay person to cut through. But this is really readable. It's great narrative nonfiction, really. And it's just it's just so great. It's like this electrifying introduction to complexity theory. And that's basically the science of how complex systems behave, from cells in human beings, ecosystems, the known universe, and beyond. So like, you know, to the edges of dark matter and everything. And it's really interesting. I think that this book is not just for general science readers, but people who are interested in exploring the mysteries of life, really. This is what my my colleague Rob Pine, who is a rep based in Denver, says. This book shifted my view of the world. It's an astonishing read that anyone who believes in science, but who has also sensed that there is more to our universe than the cold mechanics of scientific theory, will find revelatory. This is for readers of popular science and natural history, but also a book for readers of Eckhart Tolle, or those drawn to Zen, Kabbalah, or really any number of spiritual practices, I would say Wicca, that search for the meaning of existence. So this book has something for everybody. It's out now. It was out last week. It's $27 hardcover from the fabulous powerhouse of Spiegel and Grau.
Sounds like it might be a good one for like a graduation, for that certain graduation person.
Totally a Dad's and Brad's book. But anyone who's open-minded about where to draw the line between the natural and supernatural. So
I like it. I like it a lot. Because there is that whole thing about like quantum physics too. It's like that always is like,
it's crazy.
that's
is
a
so
crazy
crazy.
like
Yes,
mind-bending
it is.
thing. And then it's just like there was another thing just on the, I don't know what I saw, something about some sound that came through that was like 3 trillion years ago or something. There's something over the weekend that happened. It's like, how do you know it was 3 trillion years ago?
Because of the math, Jules. You got to carry a
Exactly.
couple of numbers. and
Simple
stuff.
as that.
Yeah, gotta carry a couple of numbers.
I said,
Yeah.
how do you know? I don't like, my mind cannot just, I can't.
We
some of
have
the
a
space stuff.
we have a Carlo Rovelli book coming in the fall, 7 brief lessons on physics. It called White Holes. So I haven't gotten, we know about black holes. Now white holes, I have to learn about white holes. I'll
Yeah.
let you know more as I learn.
Yeah, I know what it was. It was a star. It was the whole sound of what a star was like forming. And so there was like this whole
Cool.
graph thing that came across, like what the sound of this. And it's like 3 trillion years. Really? Come on now.
It was light years. or
Mind
was
blowing. It
regular
really
years?
is mind blowing.
Well, does it matter, Gabe?
I'm just trying to get the facts, Jules. I can't do anything if I don't have all the facts. I'm trying to run the numbers here.
I need to define light years when I was like, what the heck? Oh, anyways. All right. Gabe saved me.
I
You can't. It's like
too late.
Too late.
I'm too busy dog paddling myself. So Doña Cleanwell leaves home, Ana Castillo. We are so happy to have Ana Castillo on our list. This comes from our Harper Via imprint, which is usually our works in translation, but of course we do other things as well from the UK, Australia, and within our own borders. Hula, which we released a couple of weeks ago, has done really, really nicely, getting a lot of good attention. That was a Hawaiian writer, American writer. And then Ana Castillo is bringing us a collection of short stories, which can be tough, but Ana Castillo is one of the veteranas. She's been around from like the original days when Latinos were getting published back in the early 90s. I remember running around with Barbara Kingsolver, and she just was raving about Ana Castillo's book.
Yeah, she was on Grove. She was on the Grove list.
It was on the Grove list back then.
Yep.
So Far From God, was that the one?
Yeah, and there was a book with Cuba in the title that.
Yeah, that was all Garcia. That was Garcia. But there was a bunch of the African American books were popping, Latino books were popping, and then the fad went away, and we went back to the old school. Everybody went back to smaller authors, went to smaller houses and publishers, and stayed alive that way. And now we're back at the forefront, and fiction by people of color is back in vogue. We'll see how long it lasts. And we have Ana Castillo with a good collection of longer short stories, really all immersed in the magic of Mexico. Ultimately, is what they're all about. So these are people who are American, either immigrants, children of immigrants. They are definitely living in the world, and everybody in these stories is looking for something. It appears, and or being sent to look for something, and the answers lie in what. After I finished reading him, it just seemed like all the answers lied in Mexico, whether it be the ancestors, or whether it be your immigrant parents who are now living here, but they were immigrants from Mexico, or the children of the immigrants from Mexico, help move the plots along and evolve the plots and the characters, or simply the fact that these characters have to make the pilgrimage to Mexico, like as a pilgrimage, Dorothy to Oz kind of thing, to find what they're looking for. So there's this remnant of Mexico, either the people or the actual state of Mexico, it involves itself into every one of these stories, which I thought was kind of brilliant, very quietly and subtly done. You're just reading these stories, and when you get to the end, you sort of see how they've kind of come full circle in their way. But each story stands alone. Each story is very solid. They're not interconnected stories necessarily, but they are kind of connected in themes. But I thought it was a terrific election. So something new. Like I said, nice big stories, substantial short stories that couple of sittings and a couple.
And like I've said before on the short story thing, I used to discount them, and I know you guys have heard me say this before, but it's a really good way to just, like, if you're in a novel and you can dip in and out of a short story collection. I don't know. I have a much better appreciation for stories.
I had one of my very first semester in college, I took a lit class, English 221 with Sidney Richmond, with the patch on the elbows and the pipe, and really old school. And it was a short story class, and the very first story I read was Eudora Welty's A Worn Path. And we read Chekhov, and we read Frank O'Connor and Flannery O'Connor and Lawrence and
Grace Paley.
Great collection. It was called 10 Modern Masters, if you can find it. Kind of it's a textbook, obviously, but just straight loaded with these amazing short stories from these amazing. So I opened up like right away. I was already always a reader, but that really opened up Eudora Welty and Flannery O'Connor and Frank O'Connor and Chekhov and Hemingway. And that's like a bam. Every week was like, 2-3 amazing stories that we read, and everyone was amazing.
Yeah.
Every single one of those stories stays in my head.
Yeah, short stories are, I just think it's so hard to write a really good short story.
Oh, for sure.
It's
harder.
Very hard. It's such a hard form.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I misspoke. Christina Garcia, Dreaming in Cuba.
That's what I meant. Christina Garcia, Dreaming in Cuba.
Yeah. Ana Castillo, she's just somebody that I picked up and read like along in the 90s. And so I apologize.
No, I think we're highlighting some great authors.
But yeah, check out Christina Garcia too. She's pretty fab.
There you go. All right, Tom.
All
what
right.
do you have for us?
For a change of pace, this is pure summer reading. Meet Me at the Lake, Carly Fortune. And sometimes, so this is from Berkeley, which they're the publisher of all of the great rom-coms that people want to read. They're Emily Henry's publisher. So they know what they're doing. But as I think we can all agree, there are a lot of books being published into this category, and they're not all Emily Henry.
Right.
And sometimes books just rise without, we don't know what the alchemy is. So last year at this time, we published Every Summer After by Carly Fortune. And not every store took it initially, but eventually every store took it and sold it because it was a huge bestseller. But it was just word of mouth, reader telling reader to read it. So now we have a bestseller. So this came out last week, Meet Me at the Lake. You can just tell that, it looks like a book you want to read, take to the lake, take wherever you're going. It's already a New York Times bestseller. So the basic story is that this is two people who meet when they're in their late teens, early 20s. They form a connection. They make a plan to get back together again, and then what's his name? Will. There's Fern and Will. Will doesn't show up when he's supposed to show up. Now it's 10 years later. Fern is running the hotel at the lake where from that her family, from her family, but it's not where life is not where she wants it to be. And then Will shows up again. So it's about what happens from there. Reviews are great. PW says this searing story of hard-won second chances is not to be missed. So you know who you are if you like this kind of book. Meet Me at the Lake, Carly Fortune. You've probably already read. Maybe you've already read it, or you read the first book Every Summer After.
Right. That was the one, Tom, that I told you my friend's daughter wanted. And so I was just like, and my
Oh,
friend and my
right.
daughter wanted. And I was just like,
Right.
so then I was seeing it everywhere. And I was like, what is this?
I know.
After
Well, it
they
took
had
us all.
asked
It
for
took
it.
us all by surprise. I mean, it's a Canadian writer. That was her first book. But whatever the magic is in her writing, she's got it.
She's got it. I mean,
Yeah.
I think she's could be coming because that's the age group and the that are the Emily Henry fanatic.
Yes.
They're consuming everything as quick as
Right.
possible. And so this seems to hit that chord with the Emily Henry.
Well, and
So-
it's one of the things. Sometimes we try to, pull readers along towards something, and other times readers take us.
And that's this one, I think.
That's this
Yeah.
case. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the magic of publishing. There's all those, like those sleepers that just come out of nowhere and you're like, okay.
I know.
Hey, how'd that
I love it.
happen?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's
Right.
great. Yeah, and
Oh,
then I was thinking
absolutely.
at the start, I was like, why do I know this book? Why do I know this? It's like, oh yeah, that's the one that they wanted like a couple weeks ago. I was like,
That's
what the
right.
heck? Yeah,
Right.
pretty funny. All right, Andrea, closing us out. After you talk, though, I have a question for you. So go ahead and you take us to the last book here.
Okay. I want to talk about this very gifty book, Archives of Joy. This is from Greystone Press, one of our stalwart Canadian presses that I've talked about a lot. And of course, they do a lot of books on nature. And so this is right in that the wheelhouse there. It's beautifully illustrated throughout, and it's basically for readers of the author of World of Wonders from Milkweed that did so well, and Mary Oliver in terms of the poetic and sort of quirky point of view about nature that you get in a lot of Mary Oliver poems. And it's just this author, Jean-Francois Beauchemin, excuse me.
Maybe he can interpret my Anne Barrett.
Yes. Yes, I can see about that.
Hook me up.
And actually my friend Jean-Michel Verner, who lives in San Diego, you send me a pic and I'll see if you can decipher it. So I didn't even think about that.
Sorry,
So-
I forgot to I'm just totally sidetracked you. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Anyway, it's just this really little quiet but gorgeous meditation on how animals impact our lives and affect our psyches. And I mean, this is definitely a book that, I think that, every bookstore in the land should have at their counter, because it's going to be one of those books that people pick up. It's so gorgeous. It's hardcover paper over board, so it's not jacketed. So it definitely has that gifty feel to it. And let's see, what's the, 7.5 by 5.3 in terms of format. So that's nice.
Mhm.
This is going to sell for a long time, and I think sell as a gift book for the holidays as well. So check that out, Archives of Joy. It's $22.95 and it is out tomorrow.
That is a book that's right up Warwick's customer alley.
Totally.
No question. Okay, I have a question for you, Andrea. Do you rep Tin House?
No, I used to. That's a Norton distributed
Mm.
publisher
okay.
now.
Oh, well, I'm still gonna put it on the screen, dang it, because it's so
Oh, well, you
good.
should. I mean, they have a
I
great
know.
publishing program.
They have a great, Tin House. I won't talk too much about it, but if you want a good, it's a cold case murder investigation.
Oh.
two really cool sleuths that are trying to figure this cold case out, and the victim's voice that comes in, top notch.
Sounds
It's really
Oh,
great.
good.
That's great. I just received, it's funny that you like showed that because I just received a finished copy of that from my Norton rep friend, Jen Reynolds from Kentucky, who used to work at PGW, and she is raving about it. So
It's
Where is it
really
set?
good. Huh?
Was it set? Where's
Yeah,
it
New
set?
Mexico, I think, if
Uh,
I'm remembering right.
but
I'm remembering, I
the-
read it a
the
while
US.
ago. Yeah, it's US. It's US. But so I loved, kind of like I loved Wandering Souls by Cecile Penn, or Penn. I love something that's just not a straight narrative, that kind of plays with form and narrators, and I love that. So this one I thought was really well done. It was
yeah,
really good.
and it's not every day that Tin House does a hardcover. They do
Correct.
a lot of trade paper originals, so that means that they have some big
Yeah.
hopes and they're getting behind it. So
Yeah, it's a good one. It's really a good, it's a good, if you like that genre. And you know me, I'm not a big mystery kind of person, because I get really bugged at them. I get like, usually the reveal isn't very good, and I'm just like, ugh, I get disappointed. This one did not disappoint.
nice,
So there we go.
high praise.
Yeah, it was a good one. Let me go back here and see if anybody's so Kim just finished Monsters by Claire Dederer. I don't know if that
Mhm.
was anybody's. Was
That
that
was
yours?
Steve. That was Steve.
That was Steve. Okay, perfect. So that was Steve. So good topic on that one. So thanks, Kim. Another one of our good. So that's about it for comments. So I think we're done. We're kind of got done, not super early, but sort
Yeah,
of.
but-
We did pretty good for three,
Alright.
for
Yeah.
everybody.
Sometimes
right.
we go a full hour. Sometimes we don't.
Sometimes we don't. So a couple things for events. If you're in San Diego, or if you want a signed copy, maybe we can figure out how to do that for you. Andrew McCarthy, yes, the Brat Packer, Andrew McCarthy. Walking with Sam is coming to San Diego on Wednesday. Have a little bit of a lull, but then the week of June 5th, look at our calendar. It starts June 1st with Stephen Rowley. And then we go
Yeah.
into Abraham Verghese. We're one of the few stores, I think, that actually still has books, Andrea, to sell. So just saying,
It's
I'm kind of
crazy.
squirreling my first editions, though. I have to save them for the event.
Yeah.
So
It's
anyways,
crazy.
it's crazy what's going on with Covenant of Water. And I
Yeah,
keep saying
and-
his name wrong. Verghese.
yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna
But
say it wrong on stage.
but he's long suffering. If you say it wrong, he's not going to be mad.
He is the most gentle man on the
Yes.
face of the planet.
Yes, and a recent critic said that he is the best doctor novelist since Chekhov, which is unbelievable, and we love it. And that book is going to sell for a long time too.
Yep.
And
So we're so thrilled we're having. So that's June 5th. Then let's see, we've got just another small author, Isabel Allende's coming at the beginning of June. Luisa Ray is coming. We've got Lisa C is coming. So
oh wow,
that's all in 1 week.
Oh my God, 1 week.
That's not even the fall.
That's not even the fall. I
Yeah.
know. It's the first week in June, which usually shouldn't be that jammed with big stuff.
Yeah, it shouldn't feel like the fall, but
It shouldn't feel like the fall. Yeah, he's going to be joining him. Yes, Steven's husband, Byron Lane, Arlene,
that's
is
right.
talking about this, which is Big Gay Weddings coming out too. So those two are going to be, we're going to do a luncheon and a store event with Steven and Byron.
That
We're
would
doing
be
a
fun.
luncheon and an event with Luisa Ray. We're doing a luncheon and an event with, I'm not bragging here or anything, am I? With Lisa C. Let's just say that I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, oh my God, if I'm like alive after that week.
I
After
mean,
that-
you
after
have
the
been
killer week.
working it.
Yeah, I just booking all that stuff was so much fun because it all came in almost at the same time because the publicists were out doing it. So I was just like, it was like being in Vegas, man. I was just like, I got this date, I got that date, I can do that.
Hitting the jackpot one after
It
another.
was. I was like, my inbox was like pinging. It was just like, oh my God, seriously? We're getting this person? It was that's the fun of this job. So
And all in
Anyway.
person.
all in person. All in person and in big theaters, and we're selling tickets. It's like,
That's
it's
great.
gonna be really fun.
Make sure you have enough Allende in Espanol.
Yeah, well, I already did that. I actually sold the ticket that way.
Oh, good.
Because yeah, I sold the ticket with the Spanish.
Because you always
version.
get surprised how many you sell in Spanish.
That's good.
Okay, so I'm just gonna tell you, we ordered 260 in Spanish and 180 in English for it.
Wow.
That's the breakdown of the two.
That's
The
cool.
orders.
That's so
Nice.
great.
So
No, you
It's
won't be
gonna be good.
surprised.
although I love her, no signing, no signed book plates, just come and hear me talk. And we have got already like 400 people coming. to this.
Right. She's
a
so
legend.
people just want to
Legend.
be in her, they want to be in her presence.
Correct. Yeah, she's not doing any meet and greet. I love her. I love her.
Like a luminous presence.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. Who's taking Steven to dinner? What's going on over here in the chat? Somebody's happening here.
Plans are being made in the chat.
Plans are being made. It's like, holy cow, something's happening over there in the
I
chat.
did not get
don't
a
know.
dinner invitation. Why?
What's happening over there? Anyways, all right, everybody. It's great having you all here. Thank you for joining in with us this week again. And we will see everybody next week with some more great. It's getting summertime for summer reading.
Good seeing you.
Yeah, it's seeing you guys. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everybody.